Okay, this is the February 2024 koha-US web dev sake. Welcome everyone. I have questions about the label printer for Lucas. Oh, well, I forgot. And subtitle, what is George eating for lunch? And he put in the chat, he's eating Taco Bell today. Oh, all right, we got that out of the way. I'm fighting with the label printer right now. I need to print 2,000 spine labels by tomorrow. And so I tried to use the built-in one and I can get it to print right, but the font isn't what I'm wanting. So then I tried to use the plugin and I can get it to print right, but I can't accommodate for offset and creep. Do the printer profiles in the plugin work at all? And is there documentation on how that should be formatted?
Honestly, when I use the plugin, if I have that sort of thing going on with different printers, I will just make a separate layout for each one.
So
do
how
you
do I
have
make
like
it?
many? I guess you probably have different printers across all your different libraries, and that's what your problem is.
No, my problem is it's just one local printer here. But it's like, so it looks, I can share my screen and show you my entire messy setup. It looks right on the screen, but when I go to print, it doesn't, it slowly creeps down the page. Like, so do I need to make the template so that it accommodates for that? So like every row is slightly larger
I
or
would hope
something like
not.
that?
I'd hope not. I've
Because I can't
never
figure it out otherwise.
had to do that. That doesn't sound like
I'll show you,
would be a
I'll show you
good
my setup here.
sustainable way.
No, yeah, I'm frustrated if you can tell.
And it
I've
may
been
have
fighting
to
with it all
do,
morning.
I can send you some templates. Like I
So okay, so I have this Demco template. This is the one I'm using for spine
okay.
labels. And it just loops through.
And you
That
have
all works
98 per
fine.
page. Is 98 the right amount of labels per page?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. So this is how it comes out.
Uh-huh.
And you can see the little page breaks. It looks right. Everything looks great on this page. But then when I go to print, like by the time it gets to the bottom label of the page, it's about maybe a 1/4 inch off. Maybe not that much, but like it creeps down from the top to the bottom.
But that's on some printers, but not others.
It's every printer that I've
It's every printer.
tried in-house.
Depending on what your CSS looks like, there may be different solutions. I now always use grid for label layouts because it's so good at it. I can send
Okay.
you some example templates and even help you get it right if you're not super familiar with grid. But the way it allows us to define columns, define rows, and the gaps between those columns and those rows really makes it, I think, the best way to do labels in the plugin.
Okay.
And then that avoids like what you're doing, which is setting a height and a width on every label, when we don't have to do that anymore if we use grid.
Okay.
And then as we make change, we can make small incremental changes to the width of a given row and hopefully like sort that all out. I'm happy to send you some of the templates and layouts I use all the time. And I also plan to, and have planned to for a while and not gotten around to it, add all those to the label maker plugin by default.
Okay, that would be helpful. The other thing is the printer profiles on this. So that was my initial question. Can I use this? So I tried to play with it a little bit. I have no idea how to format it or what to put in it, because when you go to add one, it's just like a box that says put some content here.
And yeah, I never use it. So off the top of my head, I cannot tell you how it works.
Okay.
Like I said, I often just do multiple layouts if things are different between
Okay.
libraries. Um, I think since we can use CSS in the layout, we should be able to solve all your problems just
Okay.
in the layout with CSS.
I would appreciate those templates then, and I can play with them and butts with it.
I will send you
Oh,
those. And
great.
just for everybody, I think we're trying to put those somewhere in a knowledge base, so they're not just in my head or on my computer. So
If that's a knowledge base, it's just local, inaccessible. It's accessible via Slack. We just have to ask you for that stuff.
right, yeah.
Okay, that was my frustration for the day. What does everybody else want to talk about?
Okay, I'll bite. So I've been playing around with tutorials for the um, offline circulation tool, and looking at the GitHub, I noticed that both of them haven't been updated in quite a while, and the Windows one is working, seems to be working okay, but Mac is not. And I figure not many people are going to be using Mac, so I figure that's probably not going to get updated anytime soon, and it's probably a chore to keep it updated with Mac, but I was just curious if anybody knows anything about that or if that might be updated. Let me grab the link to the website.
We don't really use the offline circ tool, so I don't have any input on that, and I don't have any libraries using Macs either. So I don't know about that.
Jason, what do you do when recommend people do when if the system goes down?
It never goes down. Um, Generally, they just keep tracking like a spreadsheet or something. They'll pull up Excel, scan the card number, and then scan the items in there. And then when it comes back up, they go back through and do that. We did try the offline circulation tool a little bit and had some stumbling blocks with it. Like I had a library that was migrating and they didn't realize they needed to save the file, and then none of their offline circ got saved anyways. Um, so that they don't write it down in a notebook, no George. They do make it so there's copy and pasteable, but it's still a pretty low tech solution here. Yeah, I probably do too, actually have people that write things down in notebooks, but we won't talk about that.
Well, it
And
looks like, oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, it almost seems like Koha seems to be more stable than it used to be. And so if there is downtime, it's usually fairly brief. And so maybe it is something that we don't necessarily need to worry about as much anymore.
And this hasn't been updated in 9 years in any capacity, Windows or Mac. So I would say that it is unsupported at this point.
George is still adding stuff to chat. He used to be an expert with the Voyager offline circulation tool. They had to use it 2 to 3 times a week, but not so much with Koha. That's a good thing. For us, I think it's usually more internet related issues than Koha related issues. Like their internet goes down and then they have to do something to keep track. But that's usually my really small libraries that don't have a lot of traffic anyways. So it would be more of a hassle to download the extra tool and get it all set up and stuff.
That's actually helpful because that simplifies the training manual quite a bit. Thank you.
Other questions or topics of discussion for web dev? Fun things you've been working on, things you've broken and then fixed.
I have a question. I haven't done anything with it, but I just have a question. Would it
Sure.
be, well, let me rephrase that. You know, the format for the homepage is the table, the left, the right, and the center. If I want to break away from that, is that recommended? Or you just need somebody that's good in web design?
Are you talking about the public side or the staff side?
The public side.
I mean, you could do whatever you want with it. My front page doesn't use that layout at all. It's just a big search bar in the middle of the page. I don't know if there's recommended practices or not. I know there's certain stuff that you lose when you get rid of those columns. But maybe Lucas can speak to that more.
Okay. And then I have one other question. In the staff client, where the patron registers, can you rearrange the order of those fields?
There's no way in Koha to do it. The way would be JavaScript. Unless you have a really good reason why, I would say try to avoid doing that. It could get quite messy. Unless you're just wanting to move a field or two. But rearranging the whole thing is not a great idea.
Okay.
I guess my first question would be, what's the reason for wanting to rearrange it? Is because you want to
Yeah.
put fields you don't use down at the bottom? Or
Well, really not necessarily, like, if I could put the library management before the patron identity and like alternate address, we don't use that.
because there is a way using the system preferences to get rid of fields you don't want to use. I don't, off the top of my head. I think it's,
I think it's borrow unwanted field.
yeah, unwanted.
Okay. Well, it's not necessary. I don't want to get rid of them, just hide them, rather. The ones that we don't use.
Right.
There is also a way to collapse, and I don't remember where that is. Collapse stuff that you don't use very often.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
For collapsing them, Jenice, there's a system preference called CollapseFieldsPatronAddForm.
Okay. Thank you.
And actually, if you're trying to move those, not individual fields, but the field sets that they are within, we can do that with CSS,
Okay.
which is a lot less messy than trying to use jQuery to insert after, insert before,
Okay.
all that nonsense. So if it's just those field sets, you should put in a ticket with Bywater. We can help you out.
Okay.
I guess I can add something new. So we talked about at the what was earlier this week? Sysadmin SIG, somebody wanted the countdown timer to time out a patron's account, and I talked about some jQuery I wrote for that. I've added extra chunks to the jQuery library. It's a mess. It was a mess. It continues to be a mess, but I'll put the links in the chat if anybody's interested. So initially I just posted this sort of simple countdown timer and timeout function that'll do that for you. But I also added to it some CSS and some restyling of the buttons. So I'm grabbing links as I'm talking. I should have done this before I started talking. But it's too late now. Okay. So that stuff. So there's 3 different chunks. One of them does the timeout function. One does some reformatting of those buttons on the checkout form. And let me share my screen because pictures are worth a million whatevers. Let's find the window. I'll try and find the statistical. Actually, I need to do this on my test server because we'll be sitting here for 3 minutes if I don't. I think I may have talked about this at WebDev before, but I'll talk about it again because we got time. Statistical. Well, that didn't work. There we go. Okay, so one of those chunks of code reformats these buttons up here, which are added by a system preference. But I wanted to make them clearer so that people understood what they did and why they were there. One of the chunks makes the button glow red using some extra CSS. And then the other chunk adds this little countdown timer that warns you that it's going to exit the account after so many seconds, and then also triggers the function that actually exits the account. And then I didn't put this chunk in there because it's just a link that's copying the link from the last patron link back up, so that if somebody lets it time out by accident, that it'll get them back there faster with front and center notification. So I did get most of that code posted to the wiki if anybody's interested in using parts and pieces of it. It's set up for like a 1, 2, 3 minute timer in the jQuery library. On my test server, it's like 30 seconds so that I can show it off to people. But you can adjust those timings as well. So that's something fun I play with.
I was doing a training with somebody that I've been at trainings with 3 times before, and I explained the little printer icon and the little X icon, and everybody is always like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I didn't know that," including the person that's been to the training that said that at the previous 3 trainings that I've done this. So having some text there is nice. I like that.
Yeah, it gets overlooked a lot, so I just wanted to make it more obvious. We haven't turned on that whole timeout function thing for anything but statistical patrons so far, but we're planning on pushing it out to all the patron accounts at our next users group, because it is a good privacy practice. So it's clearing the screen so they're not letting it sit there, because it happens everywhere.
So I looked at it earlier, like when we talked about it last time. I went into your system and stole it and messed around with it a little bit. It doesn't have like you can't move the mouse to clear that timer, right? It's just 90 or whatever the interval is. There's currently no way to do a reset, right?
it'll reset if you reload the page. You could probably add something that makes it reset when you move the mouse.
Like on
But I
mouse
don't have
move
that
or on
built in.
key up, but you haven't built that yet. Okay. I was just
Right, yeah.
curious.
And it does refresh every time. I think every time you check out. So it keeps the page active until it's actually setting idle for a while. The only other thing I've been playing with lately is has to do with patron messages. So we have situations where we have the system preference set, so only the library that placed the message on a patron's account can delete the message on the patron's account. We have situations where the patron has moved to another town and there's like 10-year-old messages on there, and the only way for those to get cleared off is for them to change the branch, which we discourage and don't allow, or contact the other library to get them deleted. So like there's a message that says needs address update or something, like they could easily delete themselves if they had the ability. So we're looking at changing that behavior to allow the home branch of the patron to delete their messages by turning on message deletion for everybody and then using some jQuery to hide it if the home branch doesn't match the logged in branch. We haven't pushed that out either. I want to like run it by the group and make sure that's okay with everyone, but I think it makes logical sense in our setting. Because I don't see a reason to have to do all the extra work to jump through hoops for those kinds of messages. And that's generally what goes in there. And we're gonna have a nice little discussion about what not to put in messages, even if they're private as well, because snarky notes and stuff shouldn't be going in the patron's account at all. So that's a topic for my next users group as well. And I've got the code worked out on that. It's fairly simple once if anybody else is interested. I was gonna open a bug and I haven't yet in Bugzilla about it because I couldn't like explain it well enough in my head. So I'll probably do that and put it on the jQuery library once I figure out how I want to explain that I think the functionality should be optional or like toggleable.
I'm poking around in Bugzilla. There is when you delete a message, it's just a link. And the link only appears when you're at the library where the message was created, if you've got that setting turned on. But the link will work from any library. And so there's a bug somewhere out there that I can't seem to find right now in Bugzilla saying that needs to be addressed, where even if you have the right link to make it so that it will only work properly if you're at the logged in library. But that would be another option you might have, at least temporarily, is to make that link available in certain situations too.
Speaking of patron messages, hypothetically, if you wanted to make them a bit more obvious, and there's been a couple libraries that have asked about that, and I know they're already bright red already, and so making something more obvious means people will eventually start ignoring that too. But hypothetically, if you wanted to make those more obvious, maybe outline them in a red box or something like that, would that be difficult to do?
It shouldn't be.
No, it's
I
not
mean,
difficult at all. There's a, the messages have their own class. And I think it's a different class. It might be a different class depending on what type of message they are. I'm looking like crazy and I can't find a single patron that has a message on them right now. Which would probably be easier for me to stop looking and just create a message, find one patron and create a message. But yeah, there is a class for the messages that you can use to use CSS or jQuery to make them stand out differently.
yeah, I've got one that's got a public and a private message. So
Yeah.
that one just has a span around it. That's the public message. So like the OPAC message. And then this one has the circ highlight class. So that's what you could latch onto if you wanted to put a box around it or something. You could just do like a border. Although lots of stuff on the page is highlighted, so maybe not exactly. Just have to limit it further up. So do like messages, circ highlight. Then you could, yeah, you could target it and style it fairly simply, however you want. I did see a bug when I was poking around with this about the fact that this is OPAC and this is staff, but it doesn't actually say that. It's not clear at all, which I never realized.
Yeah, it's only the highlighting that tells you, that gives you that differentiates the two.
Yeah, so there's a bug out there that says they need labeled better.
There is, I've got this when I started working with Koha, all of those messages were natively, if you put HTML into the message, it would render as HTML on the page. And then for whatever reason, somebody changed it so that those messages don't render as HTML. And by this point, by the point that that change happened, Valnet already had 400, 500 messages that had HTML in the message code. And so all of a sudden, all of the messages that we had been creating for a couple of years reverted back to just raw HTML on the page. So the link that I just put in the chat box is the function that Michael from Bywater helped me create to turn those messages that were in HTML back to HTML after that change happened. So there's the link for that. The same thing at the same time it happened, the same thing happened to the notes in the reports section, is that we had every report that I created at Valnet had HTML in the notes for the report, and then all of a sudden it just stopped working with one upgrade. So that's the way to, but that would be another option you have, Michael, is to use that code, and then you can put whatever kind of crazy HTML you want into those messages to make them stand out.
And that would allow, my follow-up question to that would be, so if you wanted to have different levels of messages of this is a really important message and this is not, that would be HTML would be the perfect way to do that.
Yeah. And the reason we used it the reason I started using it when I discovered that, early on when we discovered that you could put HTML in those messages, is we used it for a lot of patrons where they had duplicate cards. And so you could put a card number in there and have it link to the other account. So you didn't have to go look up the other account. You could just click in the message and open the other account in a new window, and then you could see which account was current and work with the patron to say, well, this account's got a $50 fine and this one's got a $100 fine, and that kind of stuff. It was just a quick way to get that there. And then all of a sudden, and then somebody made a decision. I think it had to do with Mana. With the introduction of Mana, there was this fear, particularly with the reports, there was this fear with Mana that all of this report information would get uploaded to the Mana database, and that those notes that had HTML in there would be able to introduce malicious stuff into the MANA database. So they said, well, we just won't let people put HTML in it, which ruined the notes on like, 800 reports that I had. So
Yeah, I think the fear there was you can add script tags and then run JavaScript.
exactly, yeah. And so the question I had when about that was, well, if you're worried about that getting added to MANA, why don't you just make the uploading to MANA strip out those tags instead of stripping them out at the koha level? And it's like, well, no.
What else? Any other burning questions or fun projects people have been working on? I remember last month, George, you had mentioned you had template toolkit questions for Lucas. Do you still have those questions?
I've forgotten them by now, so
Darn.
I had a tough week. I might have some questions. I know when our libraries started using self-service hold shelves, I set up some notices for a couple of libraries that take the personal data out of the notice, so that they can go on the self-service hold shelf and not have identifying information. And I think all of the ones that I created were in the native koha syntax. So I'm going to have to start setting up some of those, and I figure I would do it in template toolkit. And maybe I was working on that when I had questions, but I don't remember off the top of my head. But I'm going to try and work on that. So maybe at the next meeting, I will have some examples of notices in template toolkit that have personally identifying information stripped out of them properly. But off the top of my head, I do remember I had a question for Lucas, and now I can't remember what it was. So it's been a long time since last month. I might as well say here to everybody again, if you have any good notices, put them on the wiki.
I only have bad notices, so you probably don't want those.
Christopher and I Heather Hernandez has agreed to do a video with us on just how to use the wiki, how to create an account, and how to just do a simple wiki entry. So I don't know if that's a barrier for people, but we're going to do a video on that. We're not doing a video this week because Christopher's having technical issues with the computer that has the video stored on it. And there's an issue at his library, and he hasn't had the time this week to get the video off. So that's why there's no new video today.
So I guess I can ask a question since we're setting it in mild silence. George, for your self-service hold shelves, or just holds in general, are you guys doing two slips? Like you print the slip to send it, and then at the other end, the library has to print a new slip with the patron's information or the self-service hold information?
Yeah, we
Okay.
have, if the hold is for pickup here, then it prints the patron contact information. But if the hold is to be sent in transit, no patron contact information appears on the slip that's printed. And some of our libraries don't even print slips. They just, when it generates a transfer to another library, they just put it in a pile and then put those in the courier with the courier label only. They don't bother to print a slip if it doesn't, if they just don't bother to print a slip. And consequently, that's why we have a lot of stuff that goes to the wrong library. That's probably why we have a lot of stuff that gets shipped to the wrong library.
We've always just done one slip, which is never, it's not a good thing because
No, it's a
that
horrible
patron
thing.
information.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out ways to sell that. And I guess that could be a way to sell it. Is like you don't have to print the initial slip, and you just have to print the second slip. But
I haven't addressed it with our courier coordinator now, but I did address it one time with the previous courier coordinator, the idea of creating a slip that would have all of the information that the Kansas Library Express courier slips have on them. It would just look like the Kansas Library Express courier slip, and so libraries wouldn't even need to get an alternative slip, because that's what happens for those of you who aren't in Kansas. That's what happens here now, is they check in a book and it's supposed to go to another library, and then they go to a little file box usually and pull a slip out that's a Kansas Library courier library label and put that either in the pocket on an envelope or somewhere, depending on how they're shipping. This Kansas Library Express courier slip gets put with the items. And I at one point with the previous courier coordinator, I suggested this and she thought it was a horrible idea, but we have a new courier coordinator now. And so we've talked about addressing that issue. But in order to do that, you have to have a place in the library record where you can put the information that's needed for the KLE courier. Because each library has its own courier number, and then there's that goes on the left side. And then on the right side, there's a 1 or 2 letter code that indicates which courier hub it routes through. So those things all need to be addressed in the library record in order to get that information on the slip.
I've done something like this before, George, for Bob at Click, I believe.
Yeah.
I think they put their courier codes in some unused field in the library, in the branches table, like address 3,
yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of alternate places that I put data. At one point, I asked Bywater for a quote on how much it would cost to get. So we have patron extended attributes. I said, can we do something similar with library, where we have library extended attributes? So instead of repurposing these unused fields, what if we just had a way to add new fields to that, the same way we do the patron extended attributes? And for whatever reason, we didn't pursue that, probably because it was probably out of our cost range.
isn't there some new thing that does that sort of in acquisitions? We looked at it a little bit, where you can like add extra fields to something. I forget what it's called.
You lost me at acquisitions.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about like the underlying tool that was used to build that could maybe also facilitate what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it. It was interesting when we walked through it in acquisitions because it would like pull mark data and add it to things. It's this one, additional fields. Here, I'll put the bug in the chat. Additional fields for order lines. So the additional fields thing is what I'm thinking of. So that was just random segue. What else is what else is on your guys' mind? Anything?
Okay. Anybody here know?
Are there any cool bugs people are looking at?
Hopefully you mean cool enhancements, not cool bugs. There is now the ability to make custom report templates. Has anybody done anything cool with that? Messed with it at all?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that there.
There's now the ability to create custom notices and along with a report sort of generate like custom report templates. So instead of having an output just be the output you're used to with reports, have the output be anything.
No, I haven't used that yet.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Is that upcoming or is it in 2305?
It is in 2311, but it is in 2305 Bywater builds. So if you're Bywater partner, you have it. Let me see if I can find the bug number.
I feel sorry for anybody that watches this video later.
Yeah, sorry, that took too long. 3,
That's
4,
cool.
4, 5, 6.
Oh, we're not recording, are we? We are. Okay.
We are, yeah. It's fine. They'll look at our pretty faces for a little while.
it's pretty cool. There's a lot you can do here, including sort of custom slips as you need them anywhere.
So I just read the top. So it should appear in the download menu.
Correct. So you need a notice and a report. You tie the two together, and when you have now a notice that is made in the module reports, when you run a report, you can run it with a particular template. Now you can also just like JavaScript that to the places you want it to be. Like I've already made a couple special acquisitions type slips for folks where it's JavaScripted in, but it's using a report and a custom notice to create a custom acquisition slip.
I'm glad you talked about this because I wouldn't have found it.
Yeah,
until the next upgrade when this is the notes. So this looks cool. Yeah, I want to play with this.
I think really all you have to do to get started is go make a notice on the module, choose reports. And then any report you run, you should see an option to run it with the template.
Yeah, this has a lot of potential.
Yeah, that's why I want to throw it out there, because I'm sure some cool ideas can come of this.
All right, so now that everybody knows about it, go play with it. Next month, come back, show us what cool thing you did. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to talk about today? I guess we don't talk about pages much. Has anybody done anything cool with pages? Like, have you built a cool page or
Not
done
yet.
anything there? Not yet.
We
My
played
latest
with,
was the. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, we played with it a little bit and like right after it was available. And haven't been able to get back to it, but the thought was to try and make it a place that would be where all of our content, everything you need to know about working at the information desk, you would just be able to click over and find what you need to do instead of trying to look in some binder or file or ask your coworker or whatever, to try and collect it all. But it started and then hasn't really gone anywhere. So.
Yeah, my only progress with it has been I rebuilt the my cleanups report table was stored off outside of Koha, and I rebuilt that into Koha using Bootstrap and stuff, so it looks nice and looks like it's part of Koha. And then I've been trying to get my notice thing working still, because I've been extra picky and procrastinating about it. But I wanna do the thing that Lucas did still with notices a little bit, and I've got it semi-working, but I can't get the printing to work how I want it, so. Hey, Brendan unmuted.
I was thinking about the Koha pages thing, and one of the things that came up was like maybe using pages if you name them a certain way, like start the name with the branch code maybe, then you could load like different pages for the different branches, maybe with like information about their particular policies and things like that. or I guess that could be a development, would be to add like a branch code to that table, where the HTML customization table or something. So you could, when you create the page, you could say this is a page for a certain library. So that's similar to like something that kind of exists in Aspen. When you create the pages in Aspen, there's like different options. You can choose like which library it will display on, and whether or not you need to be authenticated for the OPAC, I guess. But we were thinking the same sort of thing, but on the Koha staff page side.
Can you not already define them as a branch specific?
I forget now. I have to look at it again.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, you can. I've got the interface open right here. Hold on just a second.
So then you can, so if you define it that way, it's only visible if you're logged into that branch.
Yeah, this one here, the display location is staff interface. The library is Northeast Kansas Library System. So I should only be able to see this test page when I'm logged in at Northeast Kansas Library System, I believe.
Okay.
So let me, hold on, let me test it. Let me go over to, so that loads there, but then let me flip over to a different library. If I reload this, the page doesn't exist, so I can only see it from that location.
But I suppose that doesn't help you with, like, if you have a link to that somewhere, it's going to exist for everybody. And then when they click on it, they're either going to see
Right,
it
then they're gonna see it.
or not see it, or see what George just saw if they're not that branch.
Right.
But that means that there is a branch code associated with that HTML content. So you could like maybe write jQuery that would pull in like a specific page based on the logged in user's branch. It was just an idea that I was kind of.
What I can envision doing is you create one page, like if you had a page like a page for information for like staff information, and you want to have different parts of the page, and then you would do a div for branch A, and put a div and give it an ID of like branch code, and then give the next div different branch code as the div ID, and then write some jQuery that says if the logged in branch code equals branch A, you'll hide all those divs, make all those divs hidden, and then write a piece of jQuery that says if your branch code equals this, if your logged in branch code equals this, then unhide those divs that you want to have unhidden for that library. That'd be the simple way to do it. Just create the different divs, turn them all, make them all hidden, and then write the jQuery that says when you're logged in at this branch, unhide these specific ones. That would be the way I would do it.
So that would be a single HTML page.
Yeah,
different divs.
it'd be, I've got 50 branches, so if I wanted to have 50 different things, that'd be a hell of a long HTML page, but that'd be a way to do it. So
that puts a lot of work on the folks who know HTML versus those who don't, because those are hard things to change and edit and customize.
Yeah.
Unless you're comfortable doing HTML editing.
I'm the only one here that does any of this kind of stuff in Koha, so that would be something I would be comfortable with doing. It's probably not a great idea for, if there was more than one of me here.
Right.
So I was thinking like maybe if you have like something like a certain page that you want to display, in the same place for every library. You could just have you could maybe have them titled the same way so that you could pull. I guess you have to have those IDs. You have to have the ID of the HTML customization page, or maybe you have to use a report that grabs them all and then only gets the one
Yeah.
page to show to the right branch. There's got to be a way to do something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an easier way to, well, you know, like many things, I'm sure there's a way to make it easier for staff that's going to require a lot of work from some developer somewhere. You know, this kind of work is always a trade-off. Like, to make it easier for staff, somebody has to do a lot of work on the back end to make it easier for staff. Or if you make it easy for the person on the back end, then usually that means there's going to be more work for staff on the front end. So there's always some kind of a trade-off. I have always done these things, like I will spend 4 or 5 hours working on some piece of jQuery just to make something that takes 10 seconds take 2 seconds. And the reason I do that is because if it's, you know, if it's something that I spend 10 seconds on 25 times a day, every day of the week, then in the long run, spending 5 hours on it to get it down from 10 seconds to 2 seconds over the course of the year, that's going to save time. But, you know, it's a lot of work goes into those, making those shortcuts and making them work. So there's always some kind of trade-off. Things are always going to take time and effort on somebody's part, and you just have to make a decision whether whose time and effort you're going to be wasting. I've got another meeting that starts in about 1 minute, so I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. See you all later.
Me too. So see you next month.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next
Bye.
month.
Thanks.